Hey, welcome back to the shop. This week's project should be fairly straightforward. It's not going to be a really involved restoration. It's more of a fix and refinish. So this is a nice mid-century pedestal type end table made by a company called Brandt out of Maryland. It's got a 50th anniversary tag on the bottom, 1951. So I would date this table around the early 1950s. What's happened is a glass of adult beverage was spilled on here and messed the finish up. So my goal here is, or my request from the customer was to get this top stripped and refinished. It's got a few dings here we're going to try and get out, and then just give it a good thorough cleaning, which I think will make it look a lot better. So thanks for stopping by, and hope you enjoy this one. I've got a mixture here of just some very mild detergent and warm water, and I've got a gray pad here, and I'm just going to give this a pretty good cleaning and just see what all comes off of it. When I was cleaning the table base, I noticed that one of the legs was pretty loose, so I put a heat gun to it, loosened it up a little more so that I could get some glue down in the joint. Had to make a little jig to hold my clamps on, and just put some blue tape on that one leg to protect it the best I could, and got it clamped and glued up, and it was pretty stable. Next thing was to mark the top and the base so that I knew where to put the screws back when it was time for reassembly, and get the top off and get to stripping it. Here I'm using denatured alcohol to strip the finish off, which at this point I thought was shellac, but I'll just hold any more comments on that till later. So working it into the finish and wiping it off, and you'll see here in a second that it eventually just became a gooey mess. But I did get it clean. And then I started sanding, and I started the sanding process with 320 grit. I should have known at this point, as white as the sanding dust was, that I did not have all the finish off and should have kept going, but I was trying to be careful not to sand through to the color, and I wanted to maintain that as best I could. Got the tabletops cleaned as best I could with the vacuum, wiped it down with Mohawk wax wash, which does a really good job of cleaning. And you can also kind of gives you a preview of what the table's going to look like, and at this point it looked really good. So I proceeded to my first coat of, it's an oil-based polyurethane by General Finishes called Armor Seal. Got the first coat on, and it looked pretty good. All right, let this first coat dry, a couple days, got it sanded down, and now I'm going back with my second coat. Alright, I'm on day 3 of sanding and top coating the tabletop here. I've just tried to be very careful. I did not want to sand through to the original color. I've got one small burn through here about the size of a half of a dime. I think I can touch that up fine, but I'm switching to 600 grit. I've got some small scratches in here, very fine, that I'm trying to get out. You can still see some of the original crackling in the original finish, but everything's very stable. My intent was not to sand through and get every bit of that out. It was just to remove the stain. So I think we're getting there, so let me get sanding. I'm about to put the final coat of finish on the tabletop, and we'll let it dry probably 48 hours and then move on to the final steps. Alright, let's talk about mistakes. In the real world, no one really wants to admit when they've made a mistake or anything like that, but here in my shop, I don't have a problem with it because it happens all the time. So on the tabletop, you saw me go through all the finishing process, and this is what it looks like now. I made the decision yesterday that the finish just was not where it needed to be, so I started stripping it off and stopped because I wasn't filming, so I decided to let it sit overnight. But the finish is just very streaky. Didn't like the way it was coming out, and I think the mistake I made was I assumed or thought this was shellac and thought I got all the top finish off. I was trying to save the original color, and now I'm thinking that it was probably a spray lacquer from the factory, especially being this is a 1950s piece, and it just was looking terrible, and I can't give this back to a very nice lady and her husband without fixing it the right way. So today I'm gonna strip off everything I put on. I'm gonna strip off the original finish to get down, because I'm gonna get rid of all the alligatoring. You can still see a little bit of the original stain that the piece came in for. So I'm gonna get it stripped down and go from there. Probably have to put a light coat of stain on it, and then we'll get some better finish on it. So mistakes happen. You just gotta work with them. I'm ready to get started here. I'm going to be using this Jasco premium paint and epoxy remover, but it's supposed to remove varnish, lacquer, shellac, polyurethane, pretty much anything. So I'm going to get my mask on. I've got some ventilation and the door open in the shop. Get this sprayed on and see if we can't get this thing stripped fairly quick. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this so far. Other than the chemical smells, this isn't too bad. So far it's coming off good, and I'll just keep repeating the process of a wash with a lacquer thinner and some 4-aught steel wool, wiping it with this until when I wipe this it doesn't come up black anymore. Started sanding a little bit this morning with the 320 grit. You can see I've got this side sanded, this is not. So the goal now is just to get this down to just an even color finish. I'm going to get the scalp edges sanded. I'm going to start with brown mahogany. Pretty happy with the color and the way the stain took to the wood here, but I am going to put another coat of stain on here because it's not quite as dark, and I'm hoping that'll even out some of these variations in the wood as well. I've actually tinted my stain a little bit, so I put a few drops of reddish brown and a few drops of black in with the brown mahogany gel stain. I'm putting almost no pressure on this. I want to be real careful how I sand this top coat off. I don't want to burn through to any of the color coat. This is 4-aught steel wool, no real pressure, just helps clean up the finish a little bit. And then just use a furniture repair marker to color them up a little bit. There you go. If you remember, I marked all my holes, I marked my screws, so I know what goes back where. That way there's no question. Well, hey, you made it to the end. Thank you very much for sticking around. It means a lot to me. This week's project was this nice little mid-century table made in the early 50s by the Brandt Furniture Company out of Maryland. When it came in, it had some problems with the finish. There had been something spilled on it, and it had taken the finish off, so that was the main reason it came in. While I had it here, I noticed that this leg here was a little loose, so I tightened that back up with gluing it. I secured the metal feet. They were not on there very securely, and cleaned and polished the pedestal base. As you saw in the video, I had a little trouble with the finish, trying to do a light restoration, quote unquote. So I ended up stripping it all the way down to the bare wood, resanding it, and restaining it, putting some color on it, and then finishing it, putting finish on it. Kind of glad I did, because it really lightened the tabletop up, which is nice because now you can see the book match veneer in here. It's a very good quality table, very solid, and pretty happy with how it came out. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving me that thumbs up on the like button, and if you would, I'd be honored if you'd consider subscribing to my channel. Again, appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.